Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing good. And then today meeting we're going to discuss about planning, report and proposal. And then as an employee or whether you are the business owner, you always need report. Either you are going to give it to your boss as a monitor of the project that you are assigned to, or perhaps you as a boss, you're required to have some sales report for your employee. Report and proposal is really important. And after this, I would like to discuss three types of reports, which is informal report, analyticals, and proposal. Informal report is a report that gives you information, data, the fact, feedback, and other type of information, but they will not give you analysis or recommendation. And then for analytical report, will give you both information and the analysis, and later you can also give a recommendation. And we can see that there's some difference between informational and analytical reports because they provide a different kinds of data and information inside the report. And then proposal here is a type of report according to Bovee and Thill, but it's a special category that combines the information delivery and persuasive communication. It usually will be used for when you would like to offer a product or maybe a service to your consumer, or perhaps in a case where you invite someone to invest to your company. That is the use of the proposal. Here's the example of each types of report. For the informational report, it will be useful for reporting the monitor and control operation when you're doing a project, and then you will need to give some feedback and other information for your boss, and report the implementation of the policy and procedures. Just say that your company would like to change the policy regarding the spending on electricity operation. And then on the policy mention that you only allowed to use 2 units maximum of air conditioner instead of using all the units in a one room. And then you have to make sure that everybody who work in the one office will apply it, and then will follow that rule. And then the third one, report to demonstrate the compliance. Let's say there's some tax regulation from the government and you have to make sure that you did the tax report properly, and then it's a part of the demonstrate the compliance. And the last one, report to documents progress. Just when you also have a specific assignment from your boss and you need to report it, and then will be very useful when you just want to inform that this is your progress. And then for the analytical report, useful for report to assess the opportunities. Let's say that you're trying to assess the opportunities to open a new branch office in a specific, for example, province, and then therefore you need to make sure that there's some potential market, whether they have some specific specific regulation or a law and regulation on that local policy, and then whether there is some kind of market study you need to do, and whether it will bring profit instead of more cost. And then this is really useful when you want to assess some opportunity. And then the second one, report to solve the problem. Just for example, you have some case where a lot of your employees often comes late to the office, and then you want to know what exactly the problem is, and this is also a part of the analytical report. And the third one is about supporting the decision. Let's say that you have several alternatives already to solve some problem, and then you have to know which one is the best solution among the 3 or 4 solutions offered. And then you can make some analysis there. Perhaps you can also do research, and then you can pick at the end. And then for the proposal, there are 2 types of a proposal there. The first one is internal proposal, where you will give this proposal to your internal company or internal organizations. Just for example, when you asking for funding your project, which is as a part of the beginning plan in the beginning of the year, and then you just need to make sure that the money is provided already, and then you need to also report in details about who will involve, so what kind of activities, what is the purpose and the target of these activities, and then based on that you ask for the funding of that project. And then the second one is when you also want to propose a new project. And then for the external proposal is a type of proposal where you give it to someone external or out of your organization, which is it can be asking for the investment for your company or investment for your project from external. And then it can be also a sales proposal when you would like to offer a product or service to a consumer. There are 3-step writing process similar as the business message. For the report and proposal will consist of planning, writing, and also completing. For analyzing the situation, you, of course, as a part of planning, you have to define first what is the purpose of making this report or proposal. And there are several types of purpose here. For example, like to inform any kinds of information needed, such as giving any kinds of data, and then persuade. Maybe you can use proposal to persuade your consumer about buying your product, or maybe subscribe on your channel, for example. And then recommend, by recommending one of the option, among several options, and you recommend this option because you think that it gives more benefits instead of the other options. And then to confirm, to analyze, and to summarize. So later you have to pick what is the purpose, and you have to make some adjustment when you're writing your report and proposal. And the next step is preparing your work plan all together with your team who deal with you on that project. In terms of type of medium that you're going to use to produce proposal or report, you can make it into a hard copy or a paper base, which is really common and familiar for everyone. But through the advent of technology, we are now being introduced a new form of making a report and proposal through a digital format or a multimedia. Some of the company also would like to make a more creative form of a proposal by providing the proposal into a video, which gives more dynamic and interactive and more audio, and make more people who watch the proposal become more interesting to see. And then when you would like to organizing the information report, you have to make sure there are 2 types of approach. And then you have known that direct approach, it means that the main idea is in the beginning. In this case, because you want to report, the state of the conclusion and recommendation will be provided in the beginning of the letters of the report, or maybe when you give your informational report. And then the indirect approach is similar as the previous explanation, where you would put the main idea in the middle of the report. The way you're organizing information report is also important. There are several types of way on organizing it. The first one is by using comparison. Just for example, in one city you have several shops or several stores who sell your product, and then you want to know who has the biggest sales of the year, and you can just compare the data among these 3 stores. And then the second one is based on priorities or based on importance. Just for example, in this couple of months you have some report that there are some crucial problem faced by a company related to the company's employees' productivity in terms of coming late when it's time to start the work. And then because it's a priorities one to be discussed in a meeting, and it need to be discussed first, so that it based on the important means that it based on the most priorities problem. And then it can be also based on sequence or time, or we can also call this as a chronological. Just for example, you want to know the report of the profit in every month of the year in 1 year 2022, then you can report start from the January and then continue the report of the profit on February and March and so on. So it's based on the time. And then you can also report based on category. Just for example, when you would like to know how is the market share of the each category of product belong to Indo food. And then here you can categorize the product based on the food ingredient, food what is it? Food sauce. Yeah, sorry. It's like they categorize some product because they have some sauce. Yeah, and then they have like sweet sauce, or we call that as a black bean sauce. Yeah, and then it's can also based on the snacks, or if they have another noodles category. So when you would like to report, then it's based on this three category, and you can see each of the profit, for example, or the market share of each category. And for example, for geography, just for example, is from Chaplang. Let's say Chaplang divided their sales area according to three regional area, which is Bali Island, Borneo Island, and then there's another one, it's Java Island. And then in order to know their sales growth, they will report according to different area. So that is for the geography. And then for spatial orientation, in some case, we need to report according to the process. For example, if you monitor some kind of a production process of a company, you will start from when the product, the raw product, let's say this is for chips, potato chips. You are potato chip seller, and you have produced 1,000 snacks for potato chips. And then here you will start with the quality of the potato itself. And then after you know that its quality is good, then you will use and slice it into some shape that it looks like a chip. And after that you fry it with a very good cooking oil. And after that you dry it in order to let the excess of the oil out. And then after that you let it for like a moment to make the heat is not longer there. And after that you continue to package and put it on the box and sell and distribute it to the supplier, let's say. And then that is for spatial orientation, and each of the process will require some order. Yeah, so that is for the spatial orientation. Otherwise, for analytical report, need to have a specific way to organize the report. There are three types of approach here. The first one is a logical argument. Mostly, this is for indirect approach, where you need to have some logical and rational argument to convince your audience. And then for feasible recommendation and bottom line conclusion is about direct approach, where you want to just give directly the recommendation and the conclusion to your audience. On the focus of recommendation, because there's a direct approach, you just need to directly establish the need for action and introduce the benefits, give some steps, explain of each step, and summarize. There is no bigger effort required, because usually for the analytical report, which is a focus on recommendation, the audience is someone who already know or recognize and perhaps have a positive reaction or response toward your report. And this is some example of how you do some feasible recommendation, because here after the introduction you will directly show them about the conclusion, and you don't need to have a specific region or logical argument in the beginning where at the end you want to show this is my main idea. The main idea itself has been placed in the beginning of the report. Okay, now we will see several logical argument method. The first one called as 2 plus 2 equal 4 approach. This is an approach to logical argument to convince your reader your point of view by demonstrating that everything adds up. And the second one is a scientific method where you will do some specific research by using a lot of method and a statistical method or qualitative method to convince your audience. And then the third one is a yardstick approach, that you compare a solution or several solutions to a set of predetermined criteria. Okay, now I would like to give you in details about when you use this approach. Just for example, your reader mindset is a hostile and skeptical, then of course you will use 2 plus 2 equal 4 models. And then the same one, if your reader mindset is hostile and skeptical, you can also use yardstick models. And then for the approach itself, a direct approach is usually called as the focus on conclusion recommendation. Meanwhile, for indirect approach, you can use like 2 plus 2 and yardstick models. And then for the writer credibility, if the credibility of the writer is high, means they are really get the trust of the audience, their believability is high, then you can just use direct approach or focus on conclusion. But if you have some low credibility, means that you need to convince the audience even more, then you can just use the other 2 and 2 and yardstick models. You can later read the advantage and the drawbacks of each of the method. Okay, this is an example of 2 plus 2 approach. Here I would like to give you the first two who convince, by verify, convince the audience by verify who requests the report, when it was requested, and who wrote it. So actually this is a memo given sent for Robert Mendoza from Binpan about the major accounts of their sales problem. And then so here Binpan would like to say that who actually requests this memo, and then who write this. And then the second paragraph, they highlight more on the serious nature of the problem about the sales problem. And the next one, they try to explain how the information being used and analyzed was collected. So the two here in this approach is this one, this two for the first paragraph, and the second paragraph is another two, and the third paragraph is also another two. So after they try to give some logical paragraph, and they will add up it on the fourth one here, who want to propose some specific solution they want to show to the audience. So that is called for 2 plus 2 is equal with 4. And then here is the example for yardstick. In a yardstick approach, you need to set some specific criteria before you go on to compare the other solution or the other things. For example, here the main idea of this report, they have arranged some, what can I say, is the framework for this report. They would like to move into a commercial irrigation equipment market, but not into the residential market. So they have to choose between two, whether they want to choose commercial irrigation equipment market or residential market. And then it starts with the introduction, and then the second part is about setting the criteria or setting the standard. So in order to choose between which one is the best, commercial irrigation or a residential market, then they have to set some criteria. Which one is more potential in terms of size and growth, and then which one who have a better profit, and then which one has more capability to compete, and comparison of a distribution costs and opportunities, and the E one is fit of the current capabilities. And then after that they compare. For the first one, they want to do some adjustment. Either irrigation equipment trend is fulfill all the criteria they needed to have a good new market. And then after that, they compare the new market opportunities between commercial landscaper and residential landscaper. And after that, they end up with the recommendation. Here, actually, they have to choose to enter. They want to show that they choose commercial segment better because of some specific criteria that they have built in the beginning. The last one is about structuring proposal. There are two types of structure in a proposal. The first one is solicited, and the second one is unsolicited. Solicited means that here you're invited to send the proposal. And because you're invited, you will use a direct approach. And because you're invited, of course, it will be interested proposal for the audience. It's happen when a tender process, when a company need to have a specific product, they usually need to have it in a big volume, not in one or two pieces. Just for example, they need to provide they need to have some let's say a good quality of potato because they are cheap seller. I related with the previous example. And then to have a good potato, they already have a previous supplier, like they buy potato from Boyolali, and there's another potato from Wonosari, and then there's another potato from Bandung, and they have the supplier to send some proposal for the company to give some offering on the price of the potato, and then how many pieces they can provide, and then how they will deliver and how much is it. So that is for the call for proposal. So the company here, the cheap seller, will ask them to send the proposal. So that's why, because they're invited, they can just use a direct approach. But there are some cases that you send a proposal which is not invited or call is unsolicited, that you need to convince your audience or you need to convince your consumer about this offering, that it will bring benefits, it will advantage, it will give a lot of advantage, and then it really useful and has a really high value for consumer. So you have to convince them more. That's why it's better for you to use an indirect approach, because you need to support your main idea with data, fact, and then proof, and then all supporting things and logical things before you finally inform them that this product is actually being offered to the consumer audience. I think that's all for today's chapter. I hope that you got all the information that I shared to you, and please don't forget to work on your individual assignment that will be provided in the course site. See you again.